I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. He's the author of the book Raising Supaman, no other than Mr. Nathaniel A. Turner.
Hey, Daniel, thanks for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. Nathaniel, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure, I'm Nathaniel Turner. I am the proud son of Tommy and Gladys Turner, and the husband of Latanya and the father of Naeem.
Yes. So, Mr. Nathaniel, thank you so much for sharing your book to the world. Raising Superman. What inspired you to write this book?
The first book of the six that I've written, and the inspiration of that book was a child and wanting to be a better father for my child than believe my father was to me. So I wrote letters and I wrote notes to an unborn child and eventually started writing letters to him.
Interesting. So, what your personal experiences influence in approaching to fatherhood?
My What made me want to be a father, or what do I use as a template to be a father? Either way, I would say it's going to sound strange, but who I patterned my fatherhood lessons by was Mufasa from The Lion King. My ideal of what a great father was a lion in an animated story.
Oh, nice. So, in what ways your relationship with your own father shaped the narrative of the book?
My father and I did not have a great relationship, and I was concerned that I was going to be like my father and probably his father before him. And so I wanted to make sure that if I messed things up, I wanted my child to have a record of at least there was a point in time in my relationship with him where he was sure that his father loved him. So I wrote him letters.
Okay, interesting. So let's talk about the structure and content of the book. How is Raising Superman structured, and what is the significance of its format?
So the book is just a collection of letters. There are two fathers in the history of the world who've written letters to their child over the contiguous span of their lifetime. The first man is Lord Chesterfield. I believe he wrote letters to his son in 1737. He's a lord. I am not, so you do not have to bow and curtsy, but if you'd like to, feel free. The second is me. I just decided to write letters, which essentially became more of an instructional guide on how to be a great citizen. So that's what the book is.
Nice, excellent. So, what are some recurring themes in the letters wrote to your son?
There's a letter, for example, that I wrote to him about dreaming and the importance of dreaming, and that everything that we do that matters typically comes from a dream, and why you have to hold on to a dream, and why you have to fight for your dream, because typically people like to dampen your dreams. There are lessons on there. There's one called "Just because you knock a man down does not make you taller." I wanted him to remember that no matter what you say or do to somebody else, that does not elevate who you are. The way you elevate yourself is by being a better person. So essentially, the themes throughout the book are just ways to show a young man how to be a great man.
So, how did you address challenges of raising an African American male in today's society?
Oh, wow. How did I address it? I started with the end in mind. So before my child was born, my wife and I decided what kind of person we wanted to raise, and we set about creating a template to do that. Before he was born, we wrote Harvard. We got an application from Harvard and decided we would use the application from Harvard to see if we could make it possible for a child to meet the academic requirements of a school like Harvard. So the first thing we wanted to do is set him up for opportunities for great education. Embedded in that Harvard education application were two other things. One was um, Harvard asked for students who were world citizens, and the third was that Harvard asked for students who cared for something greater than themselves. And so we set out to make sure our child would at least be multilingual, he'll be globally and culturally competent, understand other people's cultures, etc., and that he would care for something greater than himself. And one of those models or templates in terms of African Americans was to look at the life of Paul Robeson and decide it would be really cool if we could raise someone who in some ways was similar in some ways to Paul Robeson.
Very well said, Mr. Nathaniel, and congratulations. Being a good parent is something else. So let's talk about parenting philosophies and strategies. What parenting philosophies did you advocate for in the book?
Well, the first thing I encourage all parents to do is to take a look in the mirror. I believe strongly in the idea of trees and fruit. It's an old biblical expression that you should know the tree by the fruit that it bears. And I think parents have to first figure out what kind of tree we are and who we want our children to be. And too often, my experience has been a parent as an example think of themselves as an apple tree, but then they raise a peach and then they're mad because the fruit's a peach. And I always tell parents that the reason that your fruit doesn't turn out the way you want it to is because maybe it has something to do with who you are. So my biggest parenting lesson to parents is to take a look at yourself and then decide who you want to be when your time on this planet is up and before you start having expectations of a child.
So, Mr. Nathaniel, how did you emphasize the importance of education and personal development?
So as I mentioned, the ideal was to make sure we got a child to meet the academic requirements of Harvard. So before the child was born, we were doing things to prepare the child while he was in the womb for an opportunity to have a great education. The moment that he uh, took his first breath outside the womb, we started doing stuff like reading aloud and reading big books and showing big books with animals and characters and vehicles, people, places, and things, if you will, and just expressing everything that we saw in the book. We introduced him to other languages and played language tapes while he was in the crib, and so everything we did was guided by the ideal of getting the child prepared, for example, to read as soon as possible. We started reading it too, being able to speak in full sentences as soon as possible. We could do that at 10 months, but all things were guided on making sure he could meet those rigors.
So, Mr. Nathaniel, how did you encourage your son to overcome societal expectations and stereotypes?
I'd ask him who he wanted to be and not worry about what everybody else wanted him to be. Like, who do you want to be when your time is up? One of the things he wanted to do as a 16-year-old is he wanted to leave the country and chase a dream of playing professional soccer. So he moved to Brazil. Now, most of his peers were going back to school for their senior year in high school. That wasn't what he wanted to do. So he didn't worry about the pressures of other people. He packed his bags and he moved to another country. And he was around people who he didn't know, who did not weren't always very welcoming, but it didn't matter because he knew what he wanted to be. He knew who he wanted to be in the end. So that's where I always start with sort of a backward design approach. Don't worry about what everybody else is thinking about, but think about what you want to be or who you want to be in the end.
Very well said, Mr. Nathaniel. I like that one. Don't think of what people say about you. Go for your dreams, go for your goals because we have a limited time on earth. So,
That's
how
right.
did you guide your son in handling success and failure?
Now, it's an interesting story. So I would use this analogy with him is that success and failure are peaks and valleys. And but for peaks and valleys, all land would be flat. So don't worry about success and don't worry about failure. Just keep moving. Because along the journey, you're going to have days when things are good. And along the journey, you're going to have days when things are bad. And when things are bad, just realize, of course, that a peak is on its way. If you're in the valley, just know that there's a peak along the way. And when you're on the peak, don't get too excited because you know that there's a valley on the way. So it's just a part of life, ebbs and flows.
Certainly, people. If you fail, get up and make another one. That's life, as Mr. Nathaniel talking about in the book. So tell us what lesson or resilience and perseverance did you share on the book?
The perseverance is that this is life is a journey. So you said, hey, I have an African American son, and I do. And one of the things I would remind him is that his ancestors have overcome far more than he has. He's never had a whip against his back. He's never brought a child into the earth that saw it sold on a slave auction. He's never had any blisters from picking cotton. So whatever struggles and strifes he thinks he has, they pale in comparison to his ancestors. So there's nothing that he can't do because his ancestors survived that, and so too can he.
Certainly, we are totally equal, people. So, how does the book address the balance between ambition and humility?
Question is, what are you ambitious about? Are you ambitious about just something that's for your benefit, and then you also then injure other people because you're not paying attention? Or is your ambition to do something for the greater good? I'm fine with ambition when your a goal is to do something for something other than yourself. But if your ambition is just for you, that's the kind of ambition we try to avoid. And that's essentially that's a theme throughout his life. Today he is a electrical and computer engineer. And when he was in Brazil, he decided exactly what he wanted to do. He wanted to use technology to enhance the lives of people who have been historically and geographically underserved and underrepresented. And today, that's the work he's doing. He's working on ways to make energy availability to people all over the world and do so at the lowest possible cost to folks.
Interesting. Mr. Nathaniel, what will be your success to your son or daughter? Will be your legacy to the world? That will be the legacy of Mr. Nathaniel, Raising Superman. So, what has been the public response of Raising Superman since its release?
Well, the book is now 10 years old. So initially, the book allowed me to be places in some spaces that I otherwise would have never been. People were curious why I would write a child letters. I would explain to them why. Then the people would say, well, what's the big deal about your son? And I'd say, how much time do you have? And so it sort of launched me into this place where I got a chance to go around places around the country and share a voice around the world about how to be a parent and a unique and a different approach to parenting.
So, how does the book influence discussion about modern fatherhood and parenting?
Well, then the book is really about how to be a great citizen. So no matter what age you are, the lessons are still true. Daniel, if you have a dream, the rules are still true. Daniel, if you have a dream, then chase your dream. And don't worry about what other people might say because people are probably going to try to discourage you. Daniel, if you want to be a great human being, right, try not to think that if you belittle somebody that makes you better. So the lessons are universal. The ideal for me when writing him was if I wrote a 6-year-old, I really wanted to write him as he was 36. If I wrote a 5-year-old, I was thinking about writing him when he was 55. The lessons I was writing were hopefully lessons that were going to outlive me. They were going to be universally truthful, no matter what age he was.
Definitely, people. Number one rule, you need to know what you like in life. You have a certain goals in life, and don't belittle uh, other people because God created us equal.
Yes.
So, in what ways did your approach to parenting been received by different communities?
For the most part, my approach has been received really well. Some years ago, I did a TED Talk, and about 1.8 million people watched the talk, which is pretty good for someone who does not a TED Talk, a TEDx talk. So my talk wasn't officially at a TED event; it was a TEDx event, and so the reception was really good. I think there are about 11,000, 15,000 comments. Some of the comments are unbelievable. Some of the young people who are starving for parents to do a better job. So yeah, it's the book and has allowed me to be able to again to be in some spaces and talk to people and share some things that I otherwise never imagined being able to do.
So, Mr. Nathaniel, what would be your advice for those parents out there who want to raise their kid Superman?
My advice would be to figure out to think now about who you like your child to be in the end. I know it may sound morbid to some people. I used to say if you were going to have to write your child's obituary, what kinds of things would you want to show up? Today, I say maybe an easier way to swallow this is to think about if you were writing your Wikipedia page and you were making your last entry, what things would you want to show up in that child's Wikipedia page? And whatever those things are, then start working today to make those things a reality.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. Nathaniel. And what would be your short-term and long-term goals in writing?
Just to continue writing, and to one day, if I follow the process and I write enough, maybe I'll win a Pulitzer Prize. And that'll be
Mm.
that would be great to win some national book award or some international book award.
Looking forward for that, Mr. Nathaniel. Go, 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 and stop procrastinating. Write more books that empowering us. So, what challenges might parents face when implementing your strategies?
Realizing that parents have to be better. I think that's the biggest challenge. Parents are so focused, hyper focused on who children are, and don't spend enough time figuring out who we are. I would say this. Naim and I took a trip some years ago. He had a Canon camera with a high velocity lens, and I had an old cell phone camera. And while I was taking a picture of him, he was taking a picture of me. And what I say to parents all the time is the child's lens is much clearer than your lens. They can see you at a level that you can't see them. And so what we should be doing is trying to figure out how to be the best version of ourselves. Spend less time talking, more time modeling.
Interesting. So, how can readers apply your parenting insights to their own lives?
I do courses from time to time, so they can check the website and see when we're doing the next course. But again, it's really just about some self-examination, self-exploration. I recently did a parenting scorecard, so I'm actually happy to share that with them when they can score themselves by asking their children how well they're doing as parents. It's an interesting thing. Parents always think we're doing a great job, but we never ask the people for whom which they call parents. So we should ask the children. We should find out from the children if we're actually doing a great job or not.
You did a great job, Mr. Nathaniel, empowering parents out there that confuse how to raise a Superman. What challenges might parents face when implementing your strategies?
I just think I've just hopefully just mentioned it. The challenges that they're going to face is just the internal challenges. The challenges are not external. The challenges are internal. Can you take a moment to examine yourself? I think the best people of any profession, any walk of life, are people who do self-examination, who look in the mirror, as Michael Jackson once said, look in the mirror and examine that person in the mirror before looking outside. And that's what I would say all great parents, all great anything, are people who look internally first before looking external.
Certainly. Very well said, Mr. Nathaniel. So before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, Law 101, in its first season. People, first season, because I believe ignorance of the law excuse no one. We need to know what is the law. So please do listen, Law 101, wherever you listen your podcast. So what are the key takeaways from Raising Superman for future generations of parents and children?
Takeaway for me, one is to write your children. It's a wonderful art form. It's a lost art form. And writing children is great for a couple reasons. One, my son learned to read off of the letters that his father wrote him. Two, most people will not leave anything of note to their children. But if you can leave a letter, letters, that's pretty significant to know that you're no longer here, but your children are still able to read and reflect on what you wrote. And then thirdly, the great lesson about writing letters is that if you are intentional about the letter writing, before you send the letter, you get a chance to examine yourself. So if you're angry and you write a letter and you take a moment to come back and read it, you probably won't send that letter because you're angry. And you'll want to craft the letter in such a way that it's much more loving and more useful than it is spiteful. So I think letters are a great way, especially for parents who are very emotional, to step back for a second and think about what they're going to do or say to a child before they say it.
Mr. Nathaniel A. Turner, thank you so much for empowering us. And we are looking forward for more empowering books like this. So can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Sure, I've written 6. There's Raising Supaman. It's a jungle out there. It's the Stop the Bus. We've written two series of children's book called The Amazing World of STEM, and have a book called Journey Forward. And you can find all of our books on nathanielaturner.com, or you can find them on Amazon or anywhere that fine books are sold.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Nathaniel A. Turner, because if you support him, as I said, more empowering books to come. So, Mr. Nathaniel, thank you for your time.
Daniel, appreciate you. Have a great day.
More to come, people. See you soon.